everyone. So today let's talk about top coats. This is probably the most temperamental part of the staining process that a lot of people have issue with, including myself over the years. Because you can have a beautifully stained piece and then something goes wrong with the top coat and it kind of all falls apart. So over the years, I've done my research as to the products that work for me and that I really like, so I wanted to share those with you today. So a couple of supplies you need when you're doing your final top coat on your stain project or your painted project for that matter. You will need an applicator, so you can choose these guys, these foam brushes. I tend to stay away from actual brushes. I leave those for the painting. Staining and top coating with actual paint brushes, even though they make them for those two processes, I just haven't had good luck with. Either a hair will shed behind and then you're having to worry about picking it out, or there's brush strokes that that's the last thing you want to see in your final top coat. So I go with these guys, these applicators here. These are great. And then also in one of my videos talking about staining, I mentioned these, and these are the staining pads, and these are great for top coating. So there's a trick that I learned, I don't know, it was a while back on the internet. I think I was struggling with what application process to use, and there was a suggestion about this, and ever since I've loved it. So you take your staining pad, and you go down to Walgreens or your drugstore, CVS or whatever, and you find these knee highs. I know, it's funny. I felt funny buying knee highs. They probably thought, what is this woman buying knee highs for? Who wears those? But you take your staining pad, you take your knee high, and you're gonna cover up that staining pad. And I do it twice just because it makes me feel better that I've got more protection on there, and voila. You now have a pad to put your top coat on that's got a wider surface. It's not going to leave you any lint behind because you've put your nylon on to protect any of that free lint that might fly around off the pad. And with the larger surface, you're going to have less chance of, you're going to have no brush strokes, and you're going to have less chance of that overlap mark that we try to continue to keep working it, hoping it'll go away, which then causes its own issue because you cannot overwork a top coat too much. So these are awesome and they're cheap. They're a super cheap way of doing it. And I'm telling you, I just did a dining room table the other day and it came out flawless. I mean, I probably haven't had a flawless finish like that in a long time. So was super happy. So with that being said, let's get into our choices for top coats. So I'll start with this one here. This is the Minwax Polyurethane Fast Drying. Of course, anybody who has a little teeny tiny impatience like myself loves when they see things like fast drying. So of course I had to try it because, who wants to wait 12 to 24 hours? Sometimes we just don't have that in us. Anyway, I grabbed this off the shelf and super happy with it. Great price point. I think it was around $15 or $17.99, just depends on your retailer. But the fast drying is what caught me, and it said 2 to 3 hours. So I was like, that's awesome. I can get way more product on and done and move on to my next project. And you know what? Super happy, not disappointed whatsoever. Literally, I waited the 3 hours. Just to be safe, but it was dry and ready for a second coat, and love, love, love. So I do use this one a lot, and it is in my cabinet of favorites, and it comes in different sheens, semi-gloss, satin, high gloss, I think. So try this guy, you won't be disappointed. It definitely is fast drying, and I've had no problems with it, so I really like that one. With that being said, Minwax also makes a spray polyurethane, and this one I was super hesitant to try, but my curiosity got the better of me. I think at one point I was having a lot of issues with different top coats, and let me tell you, when you have issues with top coats, it literally makes you want to throw in the towel because you've worked so hard to complete the project and you're right up to that final step and then you have a problem. So I think I was having issues and I thought, okay, well this can't hurt, let's try it. So this is an awesome product. I was pleasantly surprised. It's $8, also comes in different sheens, And I was shocked actually at how much I actually liked it. Now the key with this is you want to literally follow the directions on the can. They tell you to hold it, I think 12 inches away from your surface. Do it. It kind of might seem like nothing's getting on there, but if you go too close, you're gonna pool up and have those spots of polyurethane and it won't be a nice even flow. So I suggest if you're gonna try this, try it on a practice piece. Get some, old wood or even cardboard if you don't have any old pieces of wood, and try spraying, getting that nice fluid movement, staying the 12 inches back. Super, super happy. This will not disappoint. I actually use this more than I thought I would, and it has rescued me in some situations where I was ready to throw in the towel and I opted to go this route. And fabulous. I actually did my bedroom set. It's got all solid wood tops, and I did like 4 or 5 coats. I did a little more than I would normally do with a regular poly, because this does go on in a finer mist. Typically on a regular poly, I'll put 2 to 3 coats on, depending on the project I'm working on. But on this one, I did go a little bit more because it was more, like I said, a fine mist. And so I felt like it needed a little bit more. But this is awesome stuff, you guys. Try it. Test it first so that you get used to using it, because it is a little different. So then we have one of my favorite products, General Finishes Armor Seal. I've been using this for years, and I really like this. It also comes in different sheens. I think the price point is around $24, $25.99 for the big quart. It comes in the smaller pints as well. And this is really a great product for anything that you really want to make sure you're protecting. Dining room table, number 1, use Armor Seal. It is just a super tough as nails, oil-based top coat that is excellent. So I use this pretty much on all of my hard surface wood, stained wood projects, and love it. So this is a great one. So now we're going to move on to water-based. So what's the difference between the two and why use one over another? So what I would tell you is do some research. Figure out which one works for you. Some people don't like the oil-based because of maybe health reasons. They feel like the water-based is a safer product. I will tell you, using any top coat, ideally, do it in a ventilated room for sure. There are fumes with top coats. So either outside or make sure whatever area you're working in is very ventilated. So oil-based, in my opinion, I don't use it over any of my painted surfaces because it will amber or yellow the painted surface. For instance, if I was using antique white, I certainly wouldn't, and I've done it, so I know firsthand this is what happens. I've used an oil-based polyurethane to seal it, and it turns it yellow, or amber, they call it. And that's going to happen because of the oil base, right? So when you're working with painted surfaces and your water-based paints, use a water-based top coat and you will not have that issue. So with that being said, let's jump into some of the water-based ones that I use. Now, this is probably my number 1 I use on all of my painted surfaces, and that is the General Finishes High Performance Top Coat. And these come in satin, semi, I think even flat. So this is an awesome, awesome product for painted furniture. You can't go wrong. What I always do when I'm doing my poly, whether it's water or oil based, is I pour out what I think I'm gonna need on a paper plate and I work from there instead of continually dipping in and out of the can. One of the things with any poly, whether it's a polyacrylic, which that's the water-based, or the polyurethane, is once you leave that can open, you're exposing it to the oxygen and it can change the components of the top coat. And so you want to pour out what you need and place that top right back on so that you can preserve whatever is left in your can. Now, if you're using the whole can, it won't matter, but most projects aren't going to need that much. They don't call for that much of the top coat. So I always pour out what I need and then I seal my can back up. But this is awesome. You can use this on stained surfaces, no problem. So, you know, it's just a personal choice. I do feel, okay, water-based does dry faster than the oil-based, so that's one of the perks to it as well, is that it is a faster drying. You can, just like the oil-based, you can sand in between coats. So if you, you will put on one coat and you feel like you want it smoother, you can sand that down with a fine sand grit finishing sanding paper. So that applies to both of them. But this guy, it's just been around. It's great. It works awesome on painted surfaces, so I recommend all the time. Now, one of the other ones that I really like from General Finishes that I use, it's not as durable. It isn't recommended to use this for surfaces, or if you do, use something over it. I've read that people that do that, so they like, you know, this particular product, but then use another product over it because the durability of this one isn't as good. This is the General Finishes Flat Out Flat, and this one provides a top coat that almost doesn't even look existent. It mimics like the chalk paint, having that matte finish, and so, or some of the other paints. I just said chalk paint, but any of your painted, you know, mineral paints or milk paints, it kind of gives it that really flat look. There's really no sheen to it, and some people really like that look. I have used this and I like it a lot. I have used it on whites and creams, just like I've used the High Performance Top Coat, and I've had no problems with it ambering or yellowing. So that is a really good product to use. Just keep in mind, it's not gonna be as durable as the others. So there's one other one I forgot to mention, and I think because it's been sitting around so long, I literally used it once and didn't really like it. Now I haven't given it a second chance, because I haven't had a piece that I felt like I could risk it. So when I have a practice piece, I'm gonna try it again. But this is an oil-based, it's a wipe-on polyurethane top coat. It's a gel top coat. Now I love the gel stains, and so when I picked this up, I thought for sure I would love this. Not as much. I had a hard time with it. Literally this one you can dip your cloth in or use your applicator and put some on the piece and then wipe it with a towel as if you were staining, and literally wipe it on and get it as even as possible, and then you're done. I had a hard time with it. I know people that have used this and they really like it, so total preference. But I felt like I couldn't work with it as easily, and it was a little more challenging for me. This can is literally full, so I know I'm gonna give it another chance because I do love the General Finishes products. So I figured give it another go, but do it on a piece where I can kind of practice. So I'm waiting for that piece to come through so I can, you know, try this again, and then I'll review it again for you guys later. But those are the favorites that I use for my pieces. There are a lot more out there. There's a couple other things too that you can use other than a top coat for painted furniture. You can wax. That's something that when I first started I used. Actually, that's all I used until I learned about these other water-based top coats. But you know what? There's a lot of controversial comments about wax, that it doesn't hold up, it doesn't work, it's not worth it. Let me tell you, I did my kitchen cabinets, and I have oodles of kitchen cabinets. I'm talking probably more than 60 front and back doors that I did, and I painted them in anti-slone chalk paint probably about 3 years ago. And I used an aging wax, and then to seal it, I used their clear wax. And I just can't get on board with all the controversy of it not being a great hardening protective top coat. 3 years, 3 teenagers, all boys who are extremely hungry all the time. So you can imagine my cabinets have extremely high use. Now I do have handles on my cabinets, so that helps. However, I'm telling you, those kitchen cabinets have held up with the wax top coat. They have not scratched. They have not worn away. I don't need to touch them up yet. Eventually, you will. With wax, they do recommend that at some point you may have to re-wax them to continue the durability. But at this point, 3 years later, all good. So wax is a viable option for sealing a piece, and there's nothing wrong with it. The one thing I will tell you is it's more work. Waxing is a lot more taxing. When I was doing my cabinets, and I'm telling you about that project because it was one of the largest projects I've ever done where I used the wax, I wanted to cry because my poor arm from, you kind of have to rub on that wax and then you have to wipe it off. So I thought I was gonna lose my right arm after a while, but I made it through and I have nothing bad to say about the wax at all. So that's another option, and a lot of different paint lines make waxes. So that is also a good sealer, especially if you're just doing the body of your work. So you're doing, the bottom part of your desk or a dresser. That's not a super high use area like a tabletop. Wax is definitely gonna hold up, let me tell you. So if you wanna go that route, and the difference in the sheen or the look that wax gives, it's about equal to a satin top coat. It's a little bit of sheen, not shine, not flat. So with that being said, those are some different options for top coats. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, obviously reach out and contact me. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. And you guys have a great day. Okay, thanks so much.